Please take a seat and silence your devices. We're going to start in 13 seconds. Good morning, and welcome to our congregation. We are the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lower Bucks, the small spiritual ecosystem with the big name. And we're very pleased that you've come here today to worship with us. Thank you for choosing us, and our UU community is built on love, connection, and acceptance of all who come into our sacred space, whether it's physically or our cyberspace. We've got a bunch of folks out there watching. We hope today's message will help you on your personal and spiritual journey. So relax, sit back, and enjoy the show. Our monthly theme for December is hope. Hope is a very powerful message. Despite adversity, hope is a life orientation that believes we can prevail. I like that phrase, a life orientation. So hope is a shapeshifter that adapts in the face of reality to encourage us. That means to put heart into. The common good hangs in the balance in the struggle between hope and fear. Hope overcomes what William James called a civic temper, and that helps us transcend the drive for individual survival to focus on the common good and create a shared, meaningful experience. Now, our guest speaker today needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. You know him, you love him. He's on our A list. He's been coming here for many, many years. Mr. Mark Bernstein. And of course, he was a former staff member with the Central East region of the UUA, and he's a 30-year veteran of the UU Church of Delaware County in media. His sermon title today is Finding Meaning, Finding Hope. In the face of collective and individual grief and suffering, how do we maintain hope? In his classic book, Man's Search for Meaning, Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Victor Frankl offers answers and inspiration. For our musical prelude this morning, I'm going to invite our musician extraordinaire, Avi Wisney, to come up, fresh from the beaches of Brazil.
You might not be able to tell from the tan that I have. But I did bring back some warmer weather with me. It has been quite an adventure performing and doing programs and screenings, and I am very also happy to be home and back in community with you this morning. And we're going to start today with the song One Day by the artist Matisyahu. Some of you may be familiar with this song. We've sung it in congregation before. And if you're not, all you need to do to participate in this song, whether you are in this room or on this Zoom, is to repeat the words, one day, with me when I get to it. It is a song that talks about hope. That one day our children will play. That there will be no more war. One day. Sometimes I lay under the moon and then I thank God I'm breathing. But And I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around me. 'Cause all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play. One day, one day, one day. You can sing that with me. One day, one day, one day. It's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when they feed of the souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving though the waters stay raging. In this maze you can lose your way, your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it faze you, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around me. 'Cause all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play. One day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day. All my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play. One day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day.
Thank you for that message of hope, Avi. And Memorex is good, but live and in person, Avi, is better. I would like to invite Andrew Puchinowski up to light our chalice while I read our opening words. Come into this circle of love and justice. Come into this community where we can dream and believe in these dreams. Come into this holy space where we remember who we are and how we want to live. Come now and let us worship together. Thank you, Andrew. Please welcome Aaron Mackey up with our message for all ages.
All right, good morning. I want to thank Janet and Rich Kelly for bringing a very wonderful story through that has lasted through the ages. It's the story of Hanukkah for this time of year. Long, long ago, Alexander the Great ruled a mighty empire where the Jewish people lived in Judea. Judea's villages were surrounded by farms and flocks of sheep. They had a beautiful temple where everyone could pray to their one God. Alexander believed in many different gods, but he was very wise. Everyone should pray to their own gods, he said, as long as they lived together in peace. But after Alexander died, King Antiochus sent soldiers to all the villages and towns, where they forced everyone to bow down to statues of his Greek gods. Mattathias was the leader of one village. He and his brave sons would not give in. "We have no swords or shields," he said, "but we will not worship your gods." And they chased the soldiers out of the village. The brothers escaped before more soldiers came. "Send us anyone willing to fight for freedom," they said to the villagers. Soon there were hundreds of men and women in the hills. They were nicknamed Maccabees, which means the hammer, and they were led by Judah, one of Mattathias' sons. After 3 long, hard years of war, the Maccabees defeated an enormous Greek army, and this time they chased them out of Judah. But their beloved temple was in ruins. The soldiers had broken everything, even the holy lamp that burned night and day. Worst of all, there was no olive oil to fill a new lamp. "It will take 8 days to make a barrel of pure oil," cried Judah. The people looked everywhere, but they could only find a little jar of oil, enough for maybe 1 day. They found a new lamp, filled it from the little jar, said their prayers, and went to gather olives. While the oil was being made, a wonderful thing happened. The little lamp kept on burning brightly for 8 days. "Fill the lamp again, and we will celebrate our freedom and God's miracle of the light," said Judah. And that is why we have 8 days of Hanukkah, called the Festival of Light. We remember Judah Maccabee, his brave men and women, and the little jar of oil that lasted for 8 long days.
I would like to welcome our guest speaker, Mark Bernstein, up with his reading for this morning.
Thank you, Gil. Good morning. It's nice to be home again, and happy Hanukkah. I have to tell a quick story before I do the reading. I was born, raised a Jew. I still am, but I married out of my religion, and that's how we found Unitarian Universalism. And we would light the menorah candles every year, and we still do. My wife and I still do. And we would also, one year we were lighting the menorah candles, and we had a poinsettia plant nearby, and it got too close to the plant, and the plant caught on fire. And as I was putting it out, I could hear the words of my mother's voice in my head saying, "I told you there would be a problem if you married out of your religion." These are the words of Kevin Jago. It's called Hope Continues. When the candle dims, the wax almost spent, the light turns amber like a sunset. Still it provides light, still it provides heat, still it can kindle new flame and pass its glow on and contribute to new illumination. When sunsets turn to new days, when seasons transform all, when the candle dims, all is not lost. Hope continues, uncertain and true, like candlelight, ready to spark again. All is not lost. The words of Kevin Jago.
Thank you, Mark. Our offertory for the month of December, our split plate recipient, is Advocates for Homeless and Those in Need. And they're the ones who run the Code Blue, which goes out when it's super, super cold out and picks people up who are homeless and takes them to a place where they can not die, so that's a good thing. I know Rich Kelly has been very involved with that, being a driver. And they, besides transporting people, they offer free meals, and so please give generously. The offering has been given with pure, perfect love and has been received with sincere gratitude. Thank you for your generosity. Now our musical interlude.
Related to Mark's talk a little bit later today, I chose a song that is very familiar to a lot of memorials commemorating the Holocaust. And it is a song written by Hannah Senesh, and it is a song that reminds us in times of deep despair, when problems in our lives and in the world seem too big and too awful to deal with, we can remember the things that are constant, the things that are beautiful, especially in nature. And that's what this song reminds us and brings us back to. It's called Eli, Eli. I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. Eli, Eli, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
Thank you, Avi. That was beautiful. Let us welcome back Mark Bernstein with his sermon, Finding Meaning, Finding Hope.
Gil is so formal, you know? I love it. Here are some numbers for you to consider. In 2021, the most recent year for which complete data is available, almost 49,000 people in the United States died from gun-related injuries, according to the Centers for Disease Control. As of October 31st, a total of 621 people have been killed, and over 2,000 others have been injured in 520 mass shootings, defined as resulting in at least 4 victims, in this year alone. It is a pace that will result in the largest number of mass shootings in one year in U.S. history. In 2021, nearly 7.5 million families were in poverty, a national poverty rate of 12.8%. For children, the poverty rate was even higher, 16.9%. In 2022, over 73,000 people died from a fentanyl overdose in the United States, more than double the amount of deaths from totals recorded just 3 years earlier in 2019. In recently released data from the Anti-Defamation League, a total of 832 anti-Semitic incidents were reported between October 7th and November 7th, an increase of 316% compared to last year. The Council on American Islamic Relations reported that during that same period, there were 1,283 reports of bias, an increase of 216% over the same span in 2022. A new Pew Research Center survey found that 44% of those surveyed were pessimistic about the United States' ability to ensure racial equality for all people, regardless of race or ethnicity. Only 28% were optimistic. Earth's average surface temperature in 2022 effectively tied with 2015 as the 5th warmest on record, according to an analysis by NASA. Said NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, "Our warming climate is already making a mark. Forest fires are intensifying, hurricanes are getting stronger, droughts are wreaking havoc, and sea levels are rising." At a rally last month, ex-President Donald Trump used language in a speech that echoed Adolf Hitler, comparing his political opponents to vermin. Robert Jones, founder of the Public Religion Research Institute, commented, "Trump has clearly crossed into the domain of Nazi ideology openly." Trump has also indicated his intention to engage in an intense crackdown on immigration if he is elected to a second term next year, including rounding up undocumented immigrants and holding them in large detention camps as they wait to be expelled from the country. According to sources, local police and National Guard troops volunteered by Republican-run states would aid ICE officers in rounding up undocumented people. Trump also indicated that he would use the military to quell public demonstrations, a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, a 143-year-old law that sees military interference in civilian affairs as a threat to both democracy and personal liberty. And finally, and relatedly, a recent poll found that 23% of voters, including 1/3 of Republicans, agreed that true American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save our country. The theme of this sermon, by the way, is hope. In addition to the individual grief and suffering that all of us experience in our lifetimes, because early on we all agreed that it is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, we also share a collective sense of despair, doubt, worry, and even outright fear as we observe unfolding events in our neighborhoods, our country, and our world that seem out of control at times, senseless, immoral, dangerous, and as we contemplate a future that is uncertain at best. In the face of all this, how do we hold on to hope? How do we keep hope alive for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren, for each other? I found some of those answers in the pages of a book written in 1946 by one Victor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. Hailed as one of the most influential books in the United States by the Library of Congress, Man's Search for Meaning has sold over 16 million copies and has been translated into more than 50 languages. It stands as a testimony to the inner strength of human beings and to the importance of hope and meaning in order to survive the direst and challenging of circumstances. In 1942, just 9 months after his marriage, Frankl and his family were sent to the Theresienstadt concentration camp. 2 years later, he was transported to Auschwitz. In all, Frankl spent 3 years in 4 concentration camps. His wife, his parents, and his siblings, 1 brother and 1 sister, did not survive, dying from malnutrition, disease, or murdered by the Nazis. In his book, Frankl wrote of the horrific conditions under which he and his fellow prisoners had to endure. The brutality of the Nazi soldiers and the kapos, prisoners appointed to be guards. The humiliation of literally being stripped of everything they own. The exhausting work, being forced to stand in the freezing cold for hours. Malnutrition, living on nothing but a piece of bread, thin soup, and maybe a small bit of cheese or butter each day. Disease, including a typhoid outbreak that struck the camp one winter, resulting in delirium brought on by the disease. And through it all, Frankl persevered. He believed that hope for the future was the single most important factor in determining whether he and his fellow prisoners survived the ordeal. He wrote, "The prisoner who had lost faith in the future, his future was doomed. With his loss of belief in the future, he also lost his spiritual hold. He let himself decline and become subject to mental and physical decay." Holding on to hope for Victor Frankl was literally a life or death choice. When hope exists, he contended, there is always a way. But the loss of hope can be devastating. Frankl noted that those who lost hope experienced what he called an existential vacuum. His term for a complete loss of hope, a sense that nothing really mattered anymore. As an illustration, Frankl found that in the week between Christmas 1944 and New Year's Day 1945, there was an inordinately higher rate of death among the prisoners in Auschwitz. He theorized that this was because the prisoners had expected to be home before Christmas, and when they realized that this was not to be, they completely lost hope in life beyond the concentration camp. And Frankl counseled us on other ways to hold on to hope, including a sense of humor. In one passage, he describes an incident where several prisoners were herded into a room and forced to remove all their clothing. As they listened to the screams of men being tortured in other rooms, he wrote, "And then, quite unexpectedly, most of us were overcome by a grim sense of humor. We knew that we had nothing to lose except our so ridiculously naked lives. When the showers started to run, we all tried very hard to make fun, both about ourselves and about each other. After all, real water did flow from the sprays. Humor, for Victor Frankl, afforded him an aloofness and an ability to rise above any situation, even if only for a few seconds. Dr. Frankl also spoke of curiosity as a fundamental reaction toward the strange, that's his word, circumstances in which he found himself. The need to find out what would happen next. And he spoke about the future and his intention to never lose hope and never give up. He wrote, "For no man knew what the future would bring, much less the next hour." For Victor Frankl, though, hope alone was not enough. He argued that individuals can find hope by identifying and pursuing a sense of purpose and meaning in their lives. He wrote that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. For him, hope is not just a passive wish for a better future. It is an active and inner determination to find meaning and purpose regardless of the external circumstances. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, he wrote, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. In the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, he who has a why to live can bear with almost any how. And even in suffering, Frankl maintained, there is meaning. Suffering is an ineradicable part of life, he wrote. Without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete. The suffering that we have experienced in our lives cannot compare to that experience by Victor Frankl. Nevertheless, all of us have known loss, heartbreak, despair, disappointment. It is part of the rhythm of life. And we all see a world unfolding around us that challenges us every day to hold on to hope. And just as Victor Frankl did, we can face that challenge by finding or affirming meaning in our lives. And we find that meaning in so many ways, don't we? In our caring for our loved ones, in continuing to be a part in the lives of our children and our grandchildren, in losing ourselves in nature, in pursuing interests that unleash our creative side, in doing good work, paid and unpaid, that makes a difference, in supporting causes that fight injustice in the world. Having a sense of meaning makes us more resilient and persistent and less dissuaded by setbacks. People who know their purpose navigate stress better and have reduced levels of anxiety and worry. They fret less about decisions and are not governed by the opinions of others. Ultimately, we discover our purpose when we connect with something outside of us, something bigger than ourselves. And finally, we find meaning here, in this congregation. This is the place where we find community, where we share our lives, where we laugh and cry together, where we know that we are not alone. This is the place where we can try to make sense of a world that seems senseless, where we can take solace in the knowledge that there are good and caring people in the world that give us hope. This is our shelter against the storm. I end with one more quote from Victor Frankl's book. He wrote, "Fight the tendency to lose hope and find that which is a source of meaning. And once you've found it, live into that meaning. For in choosing to hold on to meaning, one's life will unfold with beauty and purpose, even if the road is difficult." So may it be.
Thank you, Mark, for that very powerful and uplifting message. Now is the time in our service when we recognize and lift up one another in love. Please listen with open hearts and open minds. If you have a joy that's so powerful that you just have to share it, or a sorrow that's so heavy that you need some help to carry it, please come forward to this microphone and share your joy or your sorrow.
I have an enormous sorrow. It's about the starvation and the bombing of the Palestinian people who did not cause the Holocaust. It was Europeans who caused the Holocaust, not Arabs. And they were so totally omitted from this talk. And they are being subjected to starvation and bombing, and there was no recognition.
Thank you for sharing that.
Good morning, I'm Nancy. I wanted to say this last week, and I didn't, so I'm going to say it this week. I really appreciate having Rich Kelly in our congregation. What Rich does for us is there's a connection. In our minds, it's Christmas, it's Hanukkah, it's all these things, and we're with family, friends, and we want to do all this stuff. And then he reminds us to look outside, and there are families and friends who are not doing so well. So he, in our congregation, has that tree back there that kind of reminds us people need help with our holidays, and he is the one, our connection to remind us, and here, take a name, help somebody. And then we were talking about more outreach, and he came up with another group, which is the one we're doing with our split plate, that we can do more with them. And so he had a list of needs and wants from that group. So if you have a moment and you want to talk to Rich about how can we help, how can I help, what can we do, he's doing a collection on the 16th when we open up the UU office for a little gathering of our own, but he's including that with a bring a gift, or bring, actually it's not even a gift, it's a need for these people to survive. So talk to Rich about what they need, what they can, and if you can help. This coming Saturday between 1 and 3, we're opening it up for the collection, so hopefully see you there.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, Rich is okay.
Hi, I'm also Nancy. And today it's my joy to tell you that we're bringing back Children's Craft Day next Sunday. Some of your children participated in it years ago. Maybe you still have some of those ornaments, and maybe you gave it to them when they moved out. But one of my grandchildren said to me when I mentioned it for some reason, and she said, "Oh, Mom, Craft Days were the best." So we welcome you to bring your neighbor kids, your grandchildren, your friends' children, all your relatives, whatever. The kids should have a good time. I'd just like to know how many kids are coming so that I'm sure I have enough crafts for everybody. But we will have several crafts available.
Thank you, Nancy. That sounds like fun. Well, whether you came up and shared today or not, for your joys, we in this community join you in celebration. And for your sorrows, may you feel our sympathy and our compassion. And we'll have Spirit of Life.
Please join me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of light, come to me, come to me.
And now we're going to have a group meditation. Sally Kempton, a respected teacher of meditation and spiritual wisdom, believes it's more important than ever to offer our best holding space for positive transformation by realizing that every thought and feeling matters. Every thought and every feeling. And by filling our minds with blessings and energies of light. In her in her meditation, Kempton guides participants to fill their inner hearts with loving light energy. Then, to sense that energy spilling over to fill the space around them, flowing out in waves from within to fill the entire room, the neighborhood, expanding throughout our cities, penetrating the corridors of government buildings, into the homes of people all over the world, softening and inspiring everyone and everything it touches. Now, before we start our group meditation, we need to set an intention. But what exactly is an intention? To honor something is to revere it, to show courteous regard for something, and also to hold in high regard, writes Nikki Doan, one of the two founders of Maya Yoga. Resolution is trying to solve something, a goal. But an intention is a purposeful way of living, a path. For this week's healthy habit, here's a way to honor your intention. Okay, be realistic. Doan cautions against setting intentions that are way beyond your personal reality. If your intention is so far beyond what you can possibly achieve at this current moment in your life, you'll just feel critical and guilty when you fall short. Kind of like that week after New Year's resolutions, right? Instead, set an intention that is respectful of who you are and set out to support yourself onto that path to being a better version of your glorious self. So let's begin. Take a moment to settle into your seat, get comfy, and now close your eyes. Inhale your intention for light and love into your own body. Exhaling, feel it spreading softly from your heart into the world. Imagine the people you love filled with light. Imagine people you distrust and reject filled with light. Imagine where there is fear and unhappiness and cruelty, this light dispels pain. Imagine people all over the world looking into each other's eyes and recognizing our shared humanity. Meditate on the illumination of the world. All right, you can open your eyes. And if you would, please stand as you are willing and able, and we will have our closing song.
Please join me in hymn number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. And let it start with here.
Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness nothing comes to birth, as without light nothing flowers. Our service is concluded. For those of you on Zoom, thank you for joining us today, and we hope you can join us again next week, whether live or on the Zoom. In the meantime, I'd like to thank Mark Bernstein for an amazing sermon today. For all who are here, please join us in the cafeteria for coffee and fellowship and conversation. Go now in peace. Amen, and blessed be.